Oh, yeah.
Hello, Internet. My name is Andrew William Smith, better known on Saturday mornings as Teacher on the Radio. And Teacher on the Radio has been doing live radio and podcasts here in Cookeville, Tennessee for 17 years. And getting ready for the Saturday, October the 5th broadcast, we have a special guest curator and speaker. She'll be coming to Cookeville on October the 6th and 7th to do some live in person talking. And she's helped me make the song list for today, and we're going to just share a little bit about her, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself. So our guest is Ashley Massa. She comes from South Central Tennessee, if you will, near the Alabama border, and she works at the intersection of art and activism and writing. And I know her first through her work with poetry, because I found her poetry book in a bookstore in Murfreesboro about a year ago. And then I found out that she was really involved in restorative justice work, which is a passion of mine. Here in Cookeville, we started a pen pal program with the people incarcerated in Putnam County, and we've branched out all over Tennessee. And our very small organization makes commissary donations and sends letters, whether that be on an electronic device or actual paper letters, where allowed, to people who are incarcerated. I think that's a particularly specific calling, to be super interested in spoken word, poetry,
Mhm.
novels, literary arts, and the plight of people who are in prison. So I hope you could tell us a little bit about your personal and professional journey, because you've actually made this a career. This isn't just
Yeah.
something you do on the side while you have two or three other jobs. This is your vocation. So maybe tell us a little bit about the intersection of teaching literature and restorative justice for Ashley. And welcome to Teacher on the Radio, Ashley
Thank
Massa.
you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Well, it's definitely been something that's been on the side before. I think only just like recently this past year it's been like my full-time career. Um, but I started really participating in like prison higher ed as an undergraduate. There's this program called Inside Out Prison Exchange Program, and it's all over. It's international, but it started in at Temple U in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania. And we brought it to Alabama. A professor did. And so I participated as an outside student. And so we would travel from the campus. It took about an hour and go to the nearest prison. It was a men's max prison. And we would have class with the outside students. So we would all be in a circle together, kind of like a restorative justice circle process, and have college class for the whole semester. And so that was kind of, my first time that I had been inside of a prison, taking this semester long course. So that was really transformative. And the course was on restorative justice. So we were looking at restorative justice and it was a literature course. And so that was my in. I think that was like 2018. And I just kept going back. I went back as a grad student and did a different class with the Inside Out model. And then I had the opportunity to receive training so that I could be an instructor, because it is an intense, like, week-long training that you need to do, just to be able. I think that's so valid. Not every HEP program has that kind of training, but I think it's really helpful to just know, how to adapt your syllabi, how to deal with institutional, like, things that can happen, like the institutional barriers to teaching in prisons and jails. So I had that training, and then I taught my first semester long course. I think that was last year. um, and I didn't really identify as a teacher until I did. And I'd been teaching in different ways, but I feel like teaching in that space, in that course, gave me that identity of like a teacher, a facilitator. Because one of the things with that model is that, yeah, we're facilitators. We participate, and it's not a top down model with teaching. Like, we participate in the circle as well. We're not just lecturing the whole time. So it's very involved. It's very dynamic. We do a lot of activities. So I feel really fortunate that that was my in to teaching, and like that's my pedagogical reference point. Um, so yeah, and then now I'm doing this prison work full time. I still teach part time in that program, but now I work full time in reentry. So I'm helping students in Tennessee who are in higher ed programs as they reenter life on the outside. Um, and I've learned a lot. I've been able to transfer my skill set. Um, And yeah, I see it as not really activism, but like advocacy, like a quieter form of activism, right? Because it's doing the work, but not holding a sign and saying I'm doing this. So I really like that kind of change of pace too. It's a very long-winded answer.
Well, could you maybe tell me one particular memorable experience or particular person that you all have helped, or
Oh,
how did you start to understand your classmates, for example, when you were your class? Some of your classmates, if I understood you correctly, were incarcerated, and some of your classmates were enrolled in a curriculum at a university. So,
yeah,
so what
yeah.
was that interaction like? And maybe did you have any moments of epiphany or evolution as to your thinking about this topic as you were in that first program?
Oh, for sure. Well, it's super awkward at first. I mean, because we're coming into this space as college students. There's lots of trust building you have to do because the students on the inside, okay, are like, okay, what's your motivations for being here? Why are y'all here? Why, we're not there to research. We're not there to study you. We're all it is just taking a class together. That's it. There's no like hidden agenda or motives, but you have to build that trust. So yeah, there's some awkward moments the first like two classes. But what the model does to kind of counteract that, we do a lot of icebreakers and they're kind of funny, they're kind of random. One particular moment, I remember doing an icebreaker with an inside student. We had to come up with our own like funny motion and a funny noise, and like then our partner had to copy it and do it at the same time. And we were standing in front of each other and we were both trying to remember what we were supposed to be doing. And we just like started busting out laughing because it was goofy, it was silly. And I remember thinking in that space, like bringing laughter into such a cold, sterile environment, bringing joy, bringing silliness, like just how impactful and important that is. And you can do that through college. You can do that through a class. And like, it doesn't make it any less serious or any less involved. It makes it like even more transformative. So I just remember how laughter would echo in that space and the impact it would have. Another memory I had, we did, I'm an American lit person. I'm not like British lit focused, but we did do some Shakespeare and we acted out. We had to do these performances and like, do stage directions, come up with body movements. And some of the guys, because this is a men's max, they really got into their characters and it was just so much fun. Like, just seeing everybody's personalities really shine and seeing how we worked off one another and seeing like that art and creativity in that space. Like it was I can like see it now, like their eyes lighting up and just yeah, the creativity in that space. It was really something to behold for sure.
Did your personal views change as you were going through this? I mean, did you come into this work as a student with formed views about criminal justice and incarceration? And did you, did you were like, when did you watch crime shows as a kid and be like, lock them up? And did you change it all growing up a little bit into this work as you're
Yeah.
leaning into the work? Did your views and your ideas about it change?
Well, I came in it with personal experience. So I had that like personal familial experience with incarceration. I've had close family members spend time in prisons and in jails in Tennessee. So I did come in with that knowledge. I was a little bit removed from it because it had been some time since my family members had experienced that. I do have one, though, that does have more current interactions with the system. But there was still some, personal removal there. But now, as I've gotten deeper into it and deeper into the work, yeah, I don't see a lot of things the same. I can't listen to like the true crime podcasts anymore. I just can't do it. I can't do how just sensationalized, crime stories are, and like how very one-sided, and like also one-sided, also how exploitative they are to the victim too, like it makes, because when studying restorative justice, it's about the victim and the victim's rights as well and the victim's voice. And so I kind of have beef with that whole thing too. I was really big into like horror and stuff before, and that kind of goes into the literature, like gothic literature, and my lens on that is changed a lot too. So yeah, I mean, I had this personal knowledge of the system, but I learned a lot more, and it's a lot worse than I thought, for sure. It's a lot more embedded, and it's a lot it's easy to not see it. I think, prisons are intentionally placed out of our view. They're intentionally placed in these rural, like isolated areas where everyday folks are not seeing them. They're not aware of what's going on there, and not aware, unless you're like personally involved in the system, you don't really have those day-to-day interactions. Especially if you have those privileges that afford you to not have interactions with the law. So it's easy to just not be aware. So, and then once you know, like you can't unknow, so.
Hey everyone, this is Teacher on the Radio, and I'm interviewing Ashley Massa today. And Ashley is an activist and an author from Tennessee, and she's also worked in Northern Alabama. And she has a new book of poetry that she's put out herself, and she's bringing her poems to Cookeville on Monday, October the 7th, at the Sawmill Poetry Series, which takes place at 7 p.m. at Plenty Bookstore right here in the heart of Cookeville. She'll also be speaking on Sunday, October the 6th in the morning at 10 a.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cookeville. We've just been talking a little bit about her work with folks who are incarcerated, and that'll be, I think, more the talk on Sunday morning. But when we get to Monday night, she's going to be sharing some of her original poetry with us. And so I'd like to ask you, Ashley, to talk for a few minutes. And I'm doing this live on the internet today, but I'm also going to put it in the Teacher on the Radio show on WTTU 88.5 FM. And I'm going to basically spam all my friends so they can listen to you and hopefully get excited about your visit. But tell us about your calling to, I know you also make jewelry and other forms of art as well. And you just sent me this most beautiful collage. I'm also a collage maker. So you're a multi-talented artist. Tell us a little bit about your calling to art and to poetry and to literature, just from like an aesthetic point of view. Was that like as a small child? Did something happen when you were growing up? And maybe who some of your favorite authors were, and how you work as an art, how you find time. I know all of us wear so many hats. How do we find time to write a poem or make a collage and all that kind of stuff? So just tell us about a little bit about your creative practice and what you do, what some of the creative things are that you're involved in.
For sure. I love this. I love talking about this too. So yeah, I am a jewelry maker, a jewelry artist. I've done that professionally for 11 years with my brand, Flatwoods Fawn. I see jewelry as collage. So yeah, I've done collage art as well. Growing up, my bedroom in high school, like the walls were completely collaged, like from ceiling to floor, all four walls. I ran out of space and even started doing my ceiling in my closet. And like my friends would come, and it was almost like I Spy of like finding, I would cut out like Nylon and 17 magazine and put my friends, like our MySpace pictures, and just make it this huge art piece. And so it was like I Spy. My friends would like go through and like find, different objects in my collage. It left a lot of tape marks, a lot of glue and tack marks for sure. But yeah, I see jewelry as collage. I love assembling like vintage, antique pieces, reusing, recycling what's already here, like not bringing more into the earth that isn't necessary. So that's kind of my jewelry method. And I really started with design as a kid. I wanted to go into fashion design, and like during the summers living in the country, there's not a whole lot to do. I stayed with my great grandma a lot. She only had one channel on her TV. And that was usually like playing Barney or something. And I was a little old for Barney. So I would just draw. I would make magazines, make my own fashion magazines. And then I did actually go into fashion design after I graduated high school. I did a semester at a private design school in Franklin for fashion, ended up dropping out, coming back into literature, which I feel like I found writing, as a kid too, like in high school, the quintessential like teenage girl, like finding Sylvia Plath for the first time. That was me. And I remember I had this really great writing teacher in high school, and he told my mom during parent teacher conferences, he's like, that Ashley's not going to have a normal job, right? Like it's not going to be normal. And I forgot about that. My mom reminded me of it, like after I started, a different job this year, like working full time in reentry. She's like, "You remember your teacher telling me that?" I'm like, "No, but that tracks. That he really had the sight, the vision." And yeah, sometimes these different worlds don't really intersect, but I love when they do. Like just recently, I was commissioned for my new work to do a poem. We're opening up a reentry house just for women. and they commissioned me to write a poem about women and reentry and coming home from prison. So that was a cool, like, crossing of like my two worlds. And I love a prompt. I love being given an idea, and especially one that's not super narrow, that I then get to explore, like something I might not have normally wrote about. um so yeah, these things kind of all inform each other. I also I farm. We have a farm that really informs my work, jewelry and writing. I use a lot of animal motifs, talk about animals a lot in my writing. Um, and yeah, it's been difficult to have all the time to do all these things, and for these things to all, like, when I tell people all this stuff, they're like, "Wait, when are you all doing this?" But I think on finding time, like, if you really want to, if it's really something you want to do, like, it will happen. Um but I do have a running list of deadlines at all time, and I do have to be super organized and meticulous with my time. I have 2 planners. I have Google Calendar. I've got all the lists, all the things, and maybe that's not as creative, but to me that's creative too. Like, I have to be creative with how I spend my time. So,
I really want to see this room size collage. I'm on my second full room collage, but at my old house, my rental property, we had to pay out money when I left because of when I dismantled the room
oh
size
yeah.
collage. It was done a lot of damage. Anyway, this is
Yeah.
Teacher on the Radio. I'm talking to Ashley Massa. Ashley is an author and activist and artist out of rural South Tennessee near the Alabama line. She'll be driving a few hours to Cookeville this weekend. Well, actually, next weekend for a speech or a talk at the Unitarian Universalist Church, and then a poetry reading on Monday. Ashley Massa, before we start talking a little bit about our mutual love for music and some of the songs I'm going to be putting in our broadcast on Teacher on the Radio for Saturday, October the 5th, I should have asked you in advance, but could you grab a poem really quick for me? Or
Oh,
your
yeah.
book is right there, and this is
Yeah.
the book she'll be featuring at Sawmill on Monday, October 7th at 7 p.m.
Love the back too.
Yeah, you designed the book as well as wrote it, didn't you?
Yeah, so I designed it. My husband helped make it come. He's the computer guy in our family, so he helped it come to life. It started out actually as a DIY, even more DIY, a little chapbook, and I hand sewed each one. And then after making like the 75th one, I realized this was not sustainable for my fingertips. So we had some printed, and I was able to expand it in this new version and add collage. So I did some collages using family photos and little found things online, and that was cool. That also kind of combined those two worlds. All right. So pick a poem, any poem.
Please, just go for it. That'll hopefully somebody will watch this and decide to come to Sawmill because they heard this poem
Okay.
on either on my Facebook Live, my YouTube Live, or on my radio show on 88.5 FM, one of those platforms.
Yeah. I think this one kind of like sums up the collection really well. It's called On Being a Farmer's Daughter. They'll say, "What a pretty smile when you're frowning, not realizing you are made of the same gristle and rusty nails as your father, that his blood pops out the vein in your neck. When they say, 'Are you sure you know what you're doing?' You'll feel his hand-me-down knife in your pocket sharpen. Since he has passed, you have only stepped into his intimidating shadow and moved it a step further, down the pothole concrete, towards an existence where men know better than to ask if you're going to sell the farm. They know the roots will rise out from your throat and silence them or make them ghosts."
Thank you, Ashley Massa, for joining Teacher on the Radio for a little bit of a podcast interview. We're going to be weaving through portions of this interview, all of the songs you have chosen for this amazing mixtape that you nicknamed the Southern Gothic Cowgirl, Southern Gothic Cowgal. So, so tell us about a few of these favorite musicians in your playlist and how they accompany you through life. How these folks are in your earbuds and on your smartphone or whatever else you listen to music on.
Yeah, well, so literature-wise, I love Southern Gothic literature, and that bleeds into like my music taste as well. I love stories and songs that are about place. Because I feel really called to write about the small place that I'm from as well, and also, about the love for a place, and also you can be critical at the same time while still loving it. I think SG Goodman does a really great job of that, in her writing. I love, yeah, Old Time Feeling. That song, it's about staying home, like kind of standing your ground, like making change where you are. I know that's not always for everyone in the South, but I think that's a really important sentiment to know, like, this is an option too, like another way to make change. Um, I'm really, like, informed by, of course, my parents' music taste, like, growing up listening to Southern rock, and we've got, like, a little Waylon in here. We've got Towns because my brother loves Towns. My brother's a songwriter, so we gotta have some Towns in there, and I love, female Americana artists. I think a lot of times, especially, like, online and on TikTok, the discourse, like, I see a lot of, content about, oh, these male Americana artists, like, here's some more to know, there's a lot. And that's great. Like, I love Tyler Childers. I love artists like that. But then I think the women sometimes get left out of the mix. So I've got some really great ones here. Kelsey Walden, Sierra Farrell, and they've also kind of cool. They've worn my earrings before. They've worn my jewelry on stage. So that's a cool, like, cross section there. But also they're like, I like their music even before that. So that's what makes it even more special to see them in my pieces. But yeah, I've got Kelsey Walden has a cover on here, The Laws for Protection of the People. I love the double meaning going on in that song. I think that kind of goes well with the work I do too. And yeah, there's some fun ones in here. I think these are some of my favorites. These are my soundtrack to Southern rural Tennessee, to my Southern Gothic setting that I live in and write about. So
As an adopted Southerner, they call me a Yankabilly, but I've lived here longer than I've lived everywhere else. I came here in the mid '90s,
we'll take you.
and the music, thank you, and the music has really gotten under my skin. And my spouse is from rural East Tennessee, and she grew up with a taste for the music, the rock and roll of the upper Midwest, like where I'm from, like Motown and even like Bob Seger and stuff like that, which is the music I grew up on up north. And we've kind of blended it together. But I'm way more into the twang than she is. But I bet she'll love this mix. She's a regular listener to Teacher on the Radio. So today, my guest, we're pre-gaming for next Saturday's show on October the 5th, has been Ashley Massa. Ashley is an author. She's an activist. She's an artist. She's going to be doing 2 events in Cookeville this weekend, or next weekend on October the 6th and the 7th. I'll be spamming all my followers on social media between now and then. Ashley, do you have a personal website, or is there a place? Do they want to follow you on Instagram, or what do you suggest for folks?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm at Flatwoods Fawn. That's FlatWoodsFawn. And then that's my website as well, www.flatwoodsfawn.com. You can find my poetry book. You can find my jewelry, a little bit more about me. Also on Instagram, if you love cute farm animals, I post that too. And that name, it comes from our farm. Our farm is called Flatwoods, and also love deer and animals. So that's where that comes from.
Did you say that Sierra Farrell has worn your jewelry on stage?
Yeah, she has a pair of my moon earrings, and then a really big pair of these like sun, like golden brass, like goddess drop earrings that she wears too.
I love how both her and Alinda Segarra are in your playlist. Alinda Segarra being Hooray for the Riffraff, but I love how both of them were like hobos. I mean, they were street kids. They were, busking in Asheville and New Orleans and places like that, and were just playing for spare change in the guitar case or whatever, and their careers have just completely blown up. They were both going for Album of the Year, and Sierra Farrell won Album of the Year at the Americana Awards not recently, and she's up here in the playlist. I'm not sure where this part of the talk will be adjacent to all the songs, but go on my website, www.teacherontheradio.com, and I'll have all the content from my interview and from this playlist for you all, and also info about the events upcoming. Thank you again so much for joining me for this chat today, Ashley. Stay on, and we'll decompress here for just a second. But I'm gonna turn off the broadcast button. Thanks for listening, friends.
Thank you.